Geoff, can you move the slide? Just click on the screen and then move it to the next slide. There we go. And there we go, celebrating World FM Day. And the next slide, please. Okay, next slide. And there we go. These are the resources I was mentioning that the FMCC does provide to the FM community as a whole through IFMA. Next slide, please. There we go. I am your moderator, Josh Williams, and again, Geoff Parnell, Director of A&O Facility Management in Australia. Next slide. And during this presentation, we do have 4 polls to help keep you involved, so I do encourage you to take those polls. And again, a copy of the PowerPoint is actually available for download right now on your control panel if you go to the handout section. Just click that and then you can download a PDF copy of the PowerPoint. Next slide, please. And as always, we'd like to thank our sponsors of the FMCC. Next slide. And these are the learning objectives we're going to cover during today's webinar. And now I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Geoff Parnell. Next slide. He's the founding director of A&O Facility Management in Perth, Australia. He has an extensive experience in strategic, tactical, and operational aspects of facility management. He's also held senior executive roles in a wide range of organizations. He's a past chair and life member of the Facility Management Association of Australia and a member of IFMA and the FMCC. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenter, Geoff.
Thanks very much, Josh, and welcome to this webinar on World FM Day. Some of you I know, some I don't. So to those that I haven't, nice for you to join us. I think we're going to have a few more stopping in a little bit later, but I think we're crossing over not only Australia, but a few of my colleagues I know from the East Coast and some from the at least the US that I could see there as well. One thing that was on the map earlier on in the presentation, I somehow missed out Perth in where all the things are coming from. And I think we've got Melbourne and Sydney, but not Perth. But the presentation today sort of follows a bit of the theme in terms of FM and FM as enablers. And what sort of crossed my mind was about technology and where that sits with facility management. And recall when I sort of got first involved in facility management probably about 25 or more years ago, technology was at very early days in terms of what was available. So I want to cover some of that today in terms of some of that technology, which then was cutting edge, but today is probably relegated to anchors on boats at the bottom of the ocean. But FM is all about people, it's all about place, it's all about process, it's all about technology. So it's that third one and the impact that it does have on people, place and process is what we're going to talk about today. If I look at sort of the past history of technology, when I first started to get involved in a various number of businesses, on that screen there we can see on the left-hand side what I think is an old like telex machine, which used to be the way we used to communicate. Fax machine, which is on the sort of middle bottom section of that, only started to come in probably around about 25 to 30 odd years ago. Fax machines now virtually non-existent, very few people have them. But the old, on the right-hand side of that screen was probably what looked like one of the first portable laptop TVs, which I know my staff when I was working at Arthur Anderson at the time carried them around on a little trolley. They were so heavy. So we've seen a lot happen in mobile phones as well. So we've seen a lot of those things over a very quick period of time become very much more sophisticated in terms of what they're doing. So it's much more interactive with a lot of things on handheld tablets, on smartphones, screens that affect that are now thinner and affect the sort of design and style of the office layouts and desk size, the whole range of things that enable us to not only communicate and store data and analyse that more effectively, but also provide greater benefits in terms of what we're doing. So it's become much more complex. For those very simple days in the slide two slides ago, we've got much more different ways that things are really communicating. We've got a lot more things in the cloud. We don't have to have things on a server. We don't actually have to own the software anymore to actually be accessing things like FM software, accessing things like human resource and work and safety type software. All this is available through the cloud and web enabled. So we've got much more complex ways in which we're undertaking our work, and that we need to understand what it is that we're doing. So some of those trends are critical to FM. I mean, today, and again, as I mentioned earlier, I've found a huge increase in the amount of technology that's available to use as a facility management practitioner. So it's become integral to what we do. We really can't operate without an effective amount of technology, and that technology covers quite a range of fields, as we'll talk about shortly. So that's integral, whether it's in-house FM or whether you're a service provider. And I operate obviously in the field of being a service provider, but also have worked in terms of in-house management of facilities as well. But it doesn't matter whether you're an in-house manager or you're a service provider, that technology is going to be integral about how you do your job, how you actually also interface with service providers if you're an in-house management person, or if you're a service provider, how you're interfacing not only with your clients, but also potentially your contractors, etc. as well. It's critical in terms of ensuring we've got sustainable facility operations that are in place, being able to monitor the environment in which we're responsible for managing or operating is critical. The amount of technology that's available in that area is quite significant. The adoption by FM of technology I've seen increasing over the years as well, and as I mentioned earlier, without adopting technology that's available, being able to adapt to the changes that are happening to ensure that we're the leading edge is a key component of where facility management's going. Building information systems, important to not only facility managers but architects as well in terms of the trend that's happening there, and that's taken off significantly over the last few years, and the benefits from a facility management point of view are quite significant. As I mentioned, we have cloud technology. We're actually accessing everything, whether it's sitting at a laptop or on a tablet, on a smartphone. So facilities management is really covering a range of areas, as we know, and the way in which that technology is utilised is quite important. So maybe we'll just move to the first poll. We've got about 5 people online now. In terms of the various roles that you have, and I guess some of them, as I see, are probably more consulting type roles. Are you of the view at this stage that you're using technology to the maximum benefit in your organisation? Maybe just a yes or no. I think we require on that. Josh would be the normal.
So we had 75% say yes and 25% say no.
Well, that'd be okay. That's great. It'll be interesting when we get to maybe any questions at the end or chat that's there. If there's any issues that people have about potentially why they're not using it. The 25% one was interesting there. So let's look at what the sort of technology use there are, and it really quite wide and varied now in terms of the types of technology. Some of it we'll be very familiar with in terms of area and space planning and management. Those sorts of technology has been around for quite some time, much more sophisticated now in terms of what's available, what it's doing. Maintenance and works management, we've seen significant advances in that, especially in web-based, cloud-based software, where we're actually now being able to manage not only works, but also manage our contractors, manage OH&S, a whole range of things that could be effectively managed through that, which actually reduces a significant amount of the administrative nature of what facility management operations people would be involved in. Energy management, key area in terms of the environmental type issues that we're looking at. reduction of costs. Inventory management, property and lease management, again, been around for a very long time, but the integration between that and other aspects, especially maintenance and works management and fleet management, seeing a lot more of that that's starting to happen as well. Room reservations, contractor and contract management, as I mentioned, I'm seeing that happen not only within works management system, but also within HR systems that are available today as well on cloud-based arrangements. So we're seeing a lot of integration between different types of users and different types of professions, not only FM in terms of how this actually integrates with what we're doing within FM. HR management, key in terms of collecting data and the ability to manage and gain access to different databases to create more effective reporting, more effective information to help us be making decisions about the future of the things that we're looking at. Contractor employee tracking, some of the technology available today in terms of being able to track where people are, being able to have zones that once people go into those zones, we're able to record through their smartphones the fact they've entered and then left areas, be able to know where people are, much more advanced ways of doing that. So the advancements in those areas, things I was looking at recently, are really quite exciting about just what information we get about where people are and what they're doing, taking into account privacy issues obviously as well. And obviously safety management in there as well, being able to actually gain information online about safety issues, people being able to take photos, give reports, much more interactive technology which is speeding up the way in which information is gathered and reporting is made. Across the three areas that we're involved in, and again it would depend on what people are actually doing from a service provider or in-house FM. We've got the strategic, tactical and operational aspects of facility management. And with each one of those we're using technology in different ways. So take some of those areas that I talked about earlier. Within strategic and tactical, I'll kind of group those together because some of the information is very similar across that. Things like data gathering, data consolidation, and different types of databases, the integration of different systems to enable us to gather the data in a way that makes it more effective for analysis. Area and space planning, energy management plans, contractor management, I talked about HR planning. So all of those types of technology, the sorts of information that we're gaining out of that, very useful from a strategic and tactical aspect. Some of those also flow on to the operational side of it as well in what we're doing, but looking there at more the types of things and types of activities that will drive the use of technology in terms of contractor employee tracking, the contractor and contract management aspects of it, the actual HR management. We just brought on a new system within the HR management of our own organisation, which is all cloud-based, which is providing significant advantage in terms of access to information and knowledge and integration with what we're dealing with in terms of our contractors as well, from an OH&S viewpoint. So significant areas there within the operational side of it that we're using technology on a day-to-day basis. I won't go into all of those aspects in detail, but certainly I think they're now familiar with all of those, no doubt. The key component of effective use of technology is the understanding of who the stakeholders are. And within FM we've got a really broad range of stakeholders. And they include obviously the business owners and shareholders. They include clients, our employees, the contractors that we use either as in-house FMs or as outsourced FM from service providers in terms of being managing contractors, etc. Government and regulatory bodies and community groups. Each one of those is going to be impacted quite differently. Each one of those is going to require different types of information. And a key component across all of those that we'll kind of move to as we work through this presentation is about communication. It's about sharing of information. It's about understanding expectations. and it's about ensuring that there are no expectation gaps in what happens. So there's a lot of things that go on from the soft side of technology that's important when we're looking at the stakeholders, and then whether it's actually an enabler for what we're trying to achieve and the outcomes we're trying to get to from the point of view of an FM provider, or whether it's a disabler in terms of some of those aspects that I just mentioned. So, as I mentioned, they're all impacted differently in terms of what our role as an FM provider. As an FM, either in-house or external service provider, we need to understand what they are. Sometimes those expectations, sometimes those requirements are quite different, and they're quite divergent, and sometimes at cross purposes in terms of what needs to be achieved. There's very rarely that I've experienced a total win-win scenario in an outcome that you might be trying to work through, especially when you've got some technology involved and potentially different requirements are there. And if we go look at some of those different stakeholders in terms of what the requirements of government might be, what the requirements of shareholders might be, what the requirements of the organisations who are delivering the services to clients, and the contractors who are delivering services to those service providers. It's important that we understand what all of those expectations are. They also require different information. One of the greatest benefits I've found in terms of utilising technology in FM is that we're able to tailor the technology requirements. Key component obviously is understanding what are the outputs, what are the outcomes that we need in terms of the information that's needed, tailoring the system to ensure we're capturing that information and providing concise reporting that enables that information to be understood. People to either see that compliance has been obtained or give them information that enables them to make decisions, which are generally the two key components that come out of that. So they will require different information, be able to integrate with different systems that one might have and be relating to each other to ensure that information is being collected in an effective way is quite key, I think, to achieving the right outcome from the utilisation of the FM at the end of the day. Those reporting requirements may vary. They may require things on a weekly, monthly, and they require different levels of detail. And technology is certainly enabling us to do that in effective ways. Another key component that is challenging is the different levels of access. So if you're using a facility management works management system, you're often able to provide access to your client. If you're a service provider, provide access to your client, your access to your own internal activities that are happening, and also access to contractors that may be working. So looking at the different ways of access, ensuring that the appropriate levels of access to gain the information and data you need is quite critical in terms of being able to do that. So another component that we need to be mindful of, and if we don't get that right, we're going to start to impact upon the effectiveness of the utilisation of that technology. If people can't gain access to the things they want, if there's some constraints in terms of what they're able to actually provide and put into it is quite critical from that aspect. So understanding those stakeholders, I think, very important in terms of ensuring whether technology is being an enabler or a disabler in terms of what we're trying to achieve at the end of the day. We've talked a little bit about the past and where that's kind of heading. If we start to look at where we're going in terms of future trends that are starting to happen for us overall. I mentioned at the beginning the significant changes that have occurred since I've been involved in FM and the amount of technology that's now available to effectively carry out the roles that we have and deliver the outcomes that our various stakeholders expect. But that increased use of cloud-based applications, the ability to be able to access and have update of information, update of software, update of ability to integrate with other types of software that are there is growing significantly. The amount of options that one has. In my own business, we have very little that we actually have sitting on a server in our organisation. Everything is cloud-based and provided by by third-party providers that's ensuring that information is up to date. We've got full access to a whole range of technology, and our various clients and our suppliers have got access to the correct elements within that. So that use of cloud-based application is growing at an incredibly rate. Use of mobile technology in terms of smartphones and tablets. So many things now are being done in that way. If we go back even 5, 10 years, that wasn't around to the extent it is. I mentioned earlier the use of BIM, not only within FM, but certainly within architectural engineering professions as well. So we're seeing that increased use of that. Used to be really the very big projects of BIM. We're seeing that used on much smaller projects now to ensure that we've got effective information to manage our facilities moving forward. From that point of view, quite important. Increased levels of that integration of data between different systems still can be challenging at times in terms of getting that right and ensuring that the right information that's required is being identified to be integrated between one system and another. But certainly the integration between HR, between works management systems, between finance systems, very important, and being able to gather the correct data in a way that consolidates it to effective decision-making tools. Augmented reality, something that we're seeing start to take off in recent years. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I've seen a few posts recently in terms of saying to involve that more in the FM side of it. So we're going to start to see a lot of that. Certainly architects are picking that up a lot at the moment in terms of what they're doing in terms of 3D aspects and being able to look at things in real time that are there as well. I've talked about integration of systems, tracking, monitoring. I've talked about that, and that's becoming quite important. Whether it's in delivering FM services, whether you're involved in retail, a whole range of things, and being able to track and understand movement of people, where things are happening, people moving into zones and moving out of those zones. So there. Disruptive technology, disruptive activities become quite a buzz aspect in recent times in terms of changing things. And we're seeing a lot of that, and that's affecting how businesses operate. We're going to start to see a lot more of that, I think, in terms of what's there. Realignment of business types, how people are actually doing business with each other. And I'm seeing a lot of that change. And technology has been a key component of how businesses relate to each other, how they communicate, how they actually gather data from people, how they actually do their business. And I think we're starting to almost move away. That's taken a very long time. That started probably about 30 years ago or 40 years ago. We're going to have a paperless office. I think for a while there we ended up with more paper, but I'm seeing businesses now operating with very little paper at all, with the amount of access that they can have and access they can provide to their employees for information. Globalization, key component. One of the reasons I guess we're all talking today for a number of sessions throughout the day, and obviously throughout the year as well, in terms of the globalization and the way in which facility management, and we're able to integrate and we're able to share knowledge, we're able to actually communicate, work across countries where organisations are working 24 hours a day with different parts of the world. So that technology is enabling us to actually work in quite different ways than what we actually were able to do before. And the key component, I think, in all of this is the rate of change. And as I mentioned way back in the early slide, where we had a number of technology that was leading edge. You know, the fax machine probably 35 years ago was just coming in, and you actually have to have, back in those days, for those that may remember, you actually have to have a compatible fax machine on the other end. And if you didn't, you weren't able to actually send a fax to another person, so or another organisation. And it changed, and I was working for an organisation where we had daily communication between Perth here on the west coast of Australia and Chicago. And it was done principally by telephone or fax machine. Then certainly into early days of emails and even voicemail, but the fax machine came in at a stage that actually kind of revolutionised some of the way in which we're moving documents and information from one location to another. But now that's really almost performed no purpose whatsoever. Most businesses I know don't utilise fax at all anymore. So we're seeing that change is really quite significant, and the rate of change, as we've seen through different presentations I'm sure we've all been to, is going at an exponential rate in terms of where we're heading, and being up to keep up to date with that change is going to be quite critical from an FM's point of view and the sorts of technologies that are coming upon us. So all of those trends, all those opportunities that are there, bring them with key challenges and implications to us from an FM point of view. And some of those I've kind of outlined in our next slide here. I think I've missed a couple as I've gone through there, so apologies for that. In terms of our challenges and implications that we have, understanding the technology options that are there, and they're changing so quickly, and there's multiple service providers and everything that we're looking at. So understanding what those options are, understanding what the trends are, and then identifying the right product. And I guess early in my days of being involved in consulting with clients on facility management, it was kind of, and they're looking at different systems that may be able to support what they're doing. And there were lots of them around. In the early days, a lot of those were developed by major software companies that mainly come out of finance and some other areas that kind of moved into FM, some of them out of architectural products and moved into FM, whereas today we have much more products that have been developed specifically facilities management, and then they've been then linked and integrated with other technology products such as finance and architectural design type products. But it's identifying what it is that you need that software, that technology to do for your business. What are the outcomes that are required, and then narrowing it down to see which ones are able to do that. Too many times I've seen organisations acquire software and they end up using about 5% of it, and they actually have spent a large amount of money on it and then really find it's not delivering what they want at the end of the day. I think with the amount of options that we have now available, the ability to find the right product for your business and the outputs that you're looking from that are much more achievable. Integrating that technology into our business processes is a key component. There's so many aspects within a business that one needs to cover, and we talked earlier on about people, place, process and technology. And process covers across all of those aspects. The business processes impact upon our people. The business processes impact upon the place and how we actually operate that, how we actually utilise that space and that place as well. So integrating technology into the people, place and process is really quite important. And if we don't get that right, it's going to have an impact upon how the business operates, how all those stakeholders that we talked about earlier are affected as well. The globalisation of that, ensuring that we do have consistent standards, ensuring that we are able to share that information in an effective way across different aspects. And that moves into the data that we might gather, how we might be using that for even things like benchmarking, etc. as well, because we need to be able to gather information in a consistent way to be able to do that. Key component that affects everything these days is data security. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges and implications. So that's data security not only from the point of view of the individual business and the accessibility that there might be with a lot of their systems in terms of FM or HR or works management being virtually in the cloud. Also data security in terms of the way in which we share information, the way in which we might even be communicating, sending out emails, etc. to our clients, even to that degree with the amount of hacking that we're having, the amount of fraud that's occurring from what seems like very respectable and reliable and even known providers of services receiving emails that look like it's genuine, opening up and then finding that your computers have been locked out with people demanding money to actually free them up and release the problem that's been caught. So that data security becoming even more important as we move on. That's probably one of the biggest challenges, I think, that are there from a wide variety of aspects that are there. The privacy aspect, I've covered that a bit earlier in terms of what we talked about, but becoming increasingly so with the amount of information that's available as well, that ensuring that that security supports that privacy, that people are able to maintain that aspect. That meeting of customer and stakeholder expectations, and we'll talk a little bit later about what some of the negatives and positives are about technology and the way it's affecting what we're doing. But certainly ensuring those stakeholders, and a lot of that is about communications, and sometimes overuse of technology can sometimes take away some of that face-to-face contact, some of that communication that's important in terms of ensuring that expectations are met. That we don't end up with a digital divide, that we're creating a gap between the people aspect of what we're doing in FM and getting too caught up on the other end of it in terms of those 4 areas we talked about from the point of view of the technology side of it. So perhaps another poll, if we could, there in terms of, and I think this comes up in terms of people putting something in rather than yes or no, but what's the biggest challenge that you think you'll face, despite just our discussions later in the webinar, is what is the biggest challenge you face in utilising technology to improve effectiveness and efficiency? So just one, not lots. So what would be the biggest challenge that you face from that point of view?
Okay, we have 33% said understanding technology options, 50% said integrating technology into business process, and 17% said data security.
So first, the big one was understanding.
The largest one was integrating technology into business process,
Yep.
followed by understanding technology options, followed by data security.
Okay. Good, good. Okay, so sort of flows, I think, on what we're saying there. So that's right. We'll utilise that, I think, as we move forward. But certainly that integration of technology into the business, I think, is really certainly the biggest challenge. And I know even in my own business, it's been that as well, to see what technology should we be using, picking the right one, and then ensuring that we actually got that integrated in the best way from the point of view of our employees, point of view of our clients, and the point of view of the contractors that we utilise. And what I found, one of the key things there is that sometimes you can actually have a couple of different types. For instance, we've got a works management system and we have an HR system. Both of those are online. Both of those enable us to manage contractors from the point of view of things like OH&S and ensuring they've got insurances and things in place. So it's picking the right one that is the most effective one that integrates with the rest of our business about which of those two will we actually have our contractors link into and utilise. So again, part of that key, how do we integrate it best? How do we understand the options? So I think the two that came out on top there certainly reflect that. So let's talk a bit about the benefits, and there are significant benefits in it. This guy obviously is pretty happy with some of the benefits. His computer is a bit of one of the older ones there, I think. So what can we expect in terms of the benefits of utilising technology? We should have better quality information. As we know, we haven't got the right inputs, or we're not collecting quality data, we're not going to have better quality information. So getting the source of that information right, getting the capture of that information right is quite key to ensuring we have better quality information. But it should be better quality. It should be easier to access. it should be easier to manipulate into different ways of being able to analyse that. It should be easier to gather information from different types of data bases to give us that quality. So the information should be a lot better. We should also expect better documentation, better abilities to actually convert that information into reports, better ways and ability to gather information from other providers of that. For instance, if we take a works management system, we might have a number of contractors who are involved in what we're doing, being able to gather their information, things such as their insurance, things such as their any licenses they might need to be carrying out the types of works they have, being able to gather that documentation, ensuring it's loaded up, ensuring it's monitored in terms of when its expiry dates, will be a whole range of things. So documentation will be what's coming into us, but also what's going out from a reporting point of view to those various stakeholders that are involved. Our control processes should be streamlined. We should be able to, from the technology that's available, be able to monitor things much more effectively. We go through our standard control process of setting the standards, monitoring it, what's happening, seeing how we're tracking against those objectives that we set, putting into place whatever steps we need to do to bring us back into track in terms of where we need to be. So that control process should be streamlined. We should be able to gather information in a more effective way to tell us, are we on track? Are we deviating from the timelines that we looked at? Are we deviating from the quality? Are we deviating from a range of KPIs that we may have set that enables us to determine, do we need to actually take some steps to bring us back on track? So the technology is a great assistance in that. Compliance should be improved because we're gathering information that's better quality, because we're gathering it potentially and hopefully on a more timely basis, because we're able to consolidate that information into an effective reporting format in a very timely basis, our compliance should be improved. We're able to monitor more effectively where we're at, how are we performing. We're able to then provide that evidence if we're in a compliance environment of reporting to a wide range of stakeholders or even government. We're able to actually do that more effectively. So that compliance should be improved. Transparency, we could expect there to be a benefit of greater transparency. With better improved information documentation enables us to be more transparent in terms of what we're doing. It enables, through different levels of access of information, to be more transparent. Again, I guess I'll use works management systems. And a lot of those these days, including one that we use, enable us when we've actually got some works in progress that a client has actually requested through the works management system. They're also able to monitor how those works are progressing through the system as well. So it provides them with great information, provides them with knowledge about how we're tracking in terms of our performance and meeting what's happening. So that transparency is quite important and certainly a significant benefit in that awareness, that knowledge, that communication process, which is so critical, I think, to achieving the right FM outcomes. Increased efficiency, using it effectively should deliver greater efficiency. If utilising technology isn't making us more efficient, we're either not using them in the right way, we've got the wrong technology, or it's something that doesn't really suit a technological outcome. So it should help us in most ways of being able to do that. And reduced operational costs. With the information we're gathering, it certainly helps us monitor expenses, monitor things like energy use, monitor how facilities are operating to see ways in which it can happen to reduce costs, but also I think significantly in terms of human resource costs, the utilisation of effective technology, utilisation of systems that are available can virtually result in having virtual employees with the actual information and system that's available. And I guess from my own experience, we've found that very much the way in which we're utilising HR technology to provide virtually a virtual HR management function. Still needs some personal involvement at a senior management and director level, but from a day-to-day operational aspect, we're actually able to minimise the amount of HR requirements that we have through that process. So being able to reduce those operational costs is quite significant. So I think my poll numbers have gone haywire here somehow. The numbers have gone backwards. But in terms of the benefits of using technology, so another poll that we have, the benefits of the use of technology, have they met your expectations? So in the utilisation you've done today, have they met your expectations or not? So a yes or no one on this one.
100% said yes.
Fantastic. That's good. Very important to have no expectation gaps, and even that with some challenges that we have, I think, earlier on in it. So we get to, I guess, the core point of today's webinar is technology an enabler or is it a disabler? Yeah. Go on to my next slide, if it'll let me. There we are. So if we're looking at it as enabler, enabling is the range of things that sort of come into that. Empowering, enhancing, enabling, engaging in terms of there. So enabling should ensure we're actually, it's creating opportunities. It's enabling us to do our work more effectively. It's enabling our clients to have better outcomes in terms of the utilisation of their facilities and the way in which they support the business objectives that are there. So in terms of that enabler, there might be a few advantages that we can see that are going to be there. Easy access to information virtually anytime, anywhere. It used to be, when you left your office and you got in your car and you went somewhere, you weren't accessible until you got back to the office or you got somewhere else where you could actually make a phone call or use a computer. Now we're accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether we're sitting at home, in the car, at the beach, even in an aircraft now we can get full access to making mobile phones and the internet. So we're accessible everywhere, anywhere. That means we can gather data and assess that data anywhere, and it means we can communicate with people anywhere at any time as well. It encourages innovation and creativity, the ability to have information at our fingertips, the ability to communicate across the globe, the ability to be able to talk to people, to find out information, to gather information, to research, to be able to pull things together effectively and very quickly, helps us become more innovative, more creative, makes us be thinking more. There's a negative on that aspect as well that we'll cover a little bit later. Effective data management, clear advantage. We've got greater access to data. We're able to integrate different databases, different sources of information to be able to pull that together to enable us to improve our decision-making process. That's a key component about effective outcomes in FM is that improved decision-making process. And data and technology can assist us through that. The improved communication, being accessible, being able to get hold of people, being able to identify things. Someone's out on the site, they're able to actually, again, using things like works management system, they see a problem, they're able to take a photograph, they're able to actually upload that onto the works management system in real time. The people involved in actually dealing with that problem are able to see it, the client's able to see it, they could be getting emails and information access that's there. So the communication processes that are available now through a whole range of different ways, whether it's through becoming even less these days in terms of, you've got phone, you've got the internet, you've got emails, you've got text, you've got a whole range of other things like WhatsApp, different ways in which people are communicating these days that enables it to happen very quickly and very effectively, and people will be able to be very responsive to that. Improved accountability. We could expect an advantage of improved accountability from the point of view of we're able to track things more effectively, we're able to report more effectively, people are able to actually seek information of performance against KPIs that may have been set. Efficiency and improved productivity. Efficiency and improved productivity is a key advantage that we should be getting, and that's, I think, we saw that in terms of even the response to the last question that we had, and even networking. Networking traditionally very much been by way of face-to-face activity. Networking in terms of even some of the webinars, some of the discussions that we have through what we're doing in FM, but also sorts of networking opportunities with products like LinkedIn and others that enable people to communicate and find each other and be able to do things. So a significant number of advantages there, and no doubt there's a lot more there as well. But also we've got a disabler. There are disadvantages also that happens as well, and if we don't identify what some of these disablers are and what some of the disadvantages are, then it reduces the real benefits that I think are there that are available from the effective use of technology. And some of those are increased isolation. People tend to communicate not face-to-face. They tend to be communicating through electronic media. And I think even going back when everyone started to use emails and we didn't have all the other communication systems that we have today, and it used to be a common thing of encouraging employees to step up in their workstation, look over the side of the dividing aspect of the workstation and talk to the person next to them rather than sending an email to them and getting a response. We still get that today, but there's even greater isolation occurring because we've got even more ways that we can communicate with people without seeing them face to face. So it's important that we ensure that we still provide that opportunity for people to interact, for those social skills, those communication skills that come from people talking face to face. And I see it as an increasing challenge, not only with FM but within all sectors and all industries, to ensure that we do have people with the right social and other communication skills that aren't just about communicating by way of text, emails and other systems that might be there to actually achieve that. So that's social and communication skills, or lack thereof, and people not actually developing those because they've virtually come up through their career histories communicating in other ways that haven't been that way. Job loss. There have been and will continue to be loss of jobs. That's not only in terms of people losing their jobs in terms of being made redundant, but it's jobs will disappear. Roles that were there before no longer are needed in terms of the technology that's available today. There's lots of history of those. I won't go into lots of those, but I'm sure we've all seen whereby people that had roles and types of occupations no longer exist because technology has replaced them in terms of what's there. That doesn't matter what sector you're involved in at all. Reduced competency because people are relying on technology to provide the answers, and I think that's a big challenge. And I think recently in the media there's been quite a bit of discussion on that in terms of people coming through education systems who are relying very much on the technology and the information that technology is providing them with to actually carry out their roles. So their ability to be innovative, their ability to be creative is perhaps, whilst we talked about technology can help that, we're also seeing some people actually having a reduced competency, a reduced ability to do that because they're totally relying on their technology to provide them with information and to enable them to do their role. So it can be quite a key disadvantage if we don't address that. Having too much information, always been a problem, whether it's been with lots of technology or not, but we can have too much information. It's very important that we filter down the outputs that we're looking for? What is the information that's critical to the business that we have, critical to the decision-making needs that we have to enable us to be able to do that? So too much information will reduce in a loss of confidence in the activities that are going on, and also burden us with excessive amounts of reading that we need to do, or key components being lost because it's buried in the masses of information that's there. And I guess the other one is the raised expectations of responsiveness. And I guess we've all experienced a situation where someone sent an email and if you haven't responded within 10 minutes, they're following up to see what's going on, what's the issue, what's the problem. So there is, because we are available 24/7, because we are available whether we're sitting in our office in front of our computer, we're on the beach, we're on an aircraft, wherever it might happen to be, there's an expectation that people will respond quickly. So from an FM provider point of view, whether you're in-house or whether you're a service provider, there is that increased expectation when the client or the stakeholder requests something that you're able to respond to that in a faster and faster way. And that's, I guess, a key challenge in terms of managing expectations, is the responsiveness that technology is creating from an expectation point of view of the various stakeholders that might be there. So we've gone through, we've looked at what the trends are there in terms of technology, and it's been moving incredibly fast and will continue to move incredibly fast as we move forward. We've looked at some of the ways that technology assists us in FM, some of the advantages and disadvantages of that, and we've looked at how some of those challenges that we need to face are moving forward. So we come back to, I guess, our last poll that we have before we move into literally open discussion is, do we see technology as an enabler or a disabler?
Okay, 100% view themselves as enabler.
I'd be disappointed if it wasn't. So certainly, and it is. I think the key thing there, and that's the outcome I would have expected, because I think, as I've experienced, the technology that's available today ensures that we're actually able to carry out our roles as a facility management professional in a much more effective way. But it's ensuring that looking at all of the sorts of issues that we've covered today to make sure that it is an enabler, because if we don't manage that technology effectively, then it has the ability to be a disabler in terms of some of those key issues of managing stakeholder expectations, in terms of communications, in terms of sharing knowledge and information and effective decision making. So technology can quickly become a disabler, I think, if we don't manage it. So the key component, it is, yes, very much an enabler, but if we don't manage it effectively, it has the ability to have a negative impact and be a disabler. So I'm pleased to see that all the experience of our online people at the moment, we're in the enabling mode. Thank you. That's the presentation. So if we move on to the open discussion aspect.
Sure, and if anyone has any questions, please type them into the question box on your control panel. I do have a few questions here for you all. What are the implications of technology for inclusion of FM from the start of the life cycle, well in advance of occupation?
Sorry, just go through that again.
Sure.
Is that coming up on the screen or not? No.
No, someone typed it in to me, okay. So I'm reading it off to you. I can send it to you, but it's what are the implications of technology for inclusion in facility management from the start of the life cycle before occupation?
Okay, I think the key aspects there, and we talked about BIM earlier on, and I think from my experience, having thinking about right really back at the beginning of the requirement for a facility and getting involved in the design stage, and too often I still see facility management not being involved in the design of new facilities from a wide range of aspects, both in terms of how the facility is going to be utilised in its end use, and also how it's going to then be managed from a maintenance viewpoint. And both those components are often still missed when people are actually planning their facilities. So technology, I think, is critical from that point of view, that the architectural process utilising BIM and other technology that's around is gathering the information to effectively manage those facilities moving forward, both in terms of how the occupants utilise the facility and also how the facility is then managed, and having that information being able to drop into a facility management package or a works management package, so all the information is captured up front. It's a lot easier to capture it up front in the life cycle of a new building than it is to capture it partway through that cycle.
Great, thank you.
I think that answers the question.
And yeah, and then the next one, how about legacy data? What is worth migrating? What is worth digitizing and installing?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a major exercise in terms of digitizing information that you have that's in terms of archived or historical or legacy information and data. I've always kind of worked on the basis of doing that with data that you're going to be utilizing moving forward in some way. So if you've got an operating facility where you've got a lot of data that's in hard copy, digitizing that, if it's going to be important then in terms of how you manage that facility moving forward, and therefore it becomes part of your effective data that you've got available to you. It can be then put into different systems you might be utilizing. If you've got legacy data and information that has no relevance to future decision making, then I think the time and cost of digitizing that becomes, unless it's there for some historical archival purpose, becomes almost pointless in doing that. So I think it's identifying what it is that you actually need in terms of your future decision making and future operational activities is going to be key. So it's still filtering out what's relevant for the future as opposed to what has no sort of future relevance at all.
Great. And what impact will these technologies have on outsourcing strategies?
I think from an outsourcing strategy point of view, I guess the business I had was involved in providing outsourced FM services, and utilising of effective works management systems that involve the client and involve the contractor. So you've got sort of the three key stakeholders involved and able to access those systems to gather the so basically to initiate some works or a transaction from a client point of view, or the service provider to be able to receive that request and be able to process it whilst linking in the contractor that might be actually carrying out the works, and for the information to be effectively shared amongst those three parties is really quite critical. And I think we're seeing much more integration of that, whereas going back probably a few years ago where people might send an email request or a written request for work to be done, there's a whole series of totally separated processes. Now those processes through technology are integrated with transparency and the ability for all of the stakeholders to access in real time what's going on and know what the current status of works might be. Including getting so the client knows the works are underway, when they've been done, reports available online, contractors taking photographs of things on site that are able to be shared with us and with our clients, a whole range of things there. So it's all about communication, it's about stakeholder expectations, it's about ease of access, and it's about timeliness. So I think technology is enabling that side of it in terms of outsourced FM for the client to have greater knowledge and information control without increasing their human resources on the ground to do that.
Thank you, and I just want to put a plug in for with this virtual FM World FM Day event. Session 17 will actually go into some of this as well, so I would encourage people to sign up for that session as well. And then our final question says, what is your view of the rate of change in cybersecurity, especially with the growth of IT? I'm sorry, with the growth of the Internet of Things, sorry.
So what, my impression of the rate of change?
Yes, of cybersecurity.
Yeah. Cybersecurity. Yeah, no, I think, as I mentioned during the presentation, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, and we're probably all inundated with different attempts to break into systems or to hack into what we have, or create problems in terms of how we use our technology, and I think the rate of change of that, the rate in which some of the organisations are able to develop ways to break into technology, and the rate that we need to be keeping up with that from the point of view of the IT providers and providing the types of security we need is significant. Totally an area outside of my area of expertise, but I think it's one that we all need to be very mindful of and ensure that we have the appropriate protection and systems in place to minimise the potential impact of that. And I don't think almost a week goes by when I don't hear about someone in business that's opened up what it purports to be, in effect, an email from someone that looks appropriate, and yet it's provided access to their system and caused all sorts of issues for them. So it's probably one of the biggest challenges we have at the moment in IT, and one of the biggest challenges FM providers. We don't ensure we're protected effectively from that. But it's going to be progressing at a rapid rate, I think.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And actually that puts us slightly over. So I want to thank you very much, Geoff, for your time and a great presentation. And everyone, I want to thank you for joining us for the special World FM Day presentation. I hope you get to attend as many as possible over the next 30 hours. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for your attendance.